Hi all, this is Kundamlenga Mbewe coming to you from the Bonanza Golf Course. We're going to be interviewing the Minister of Tourism, Hon Rodney Sikumba, who is endorsing the redevelopment of the Livingstone Golf Course. The redevelopment is very welcome because it is going to increase activities or add on to the activities that a tourist can do when they visit Livingstone, which means the length of stay for the tourists will also be increased.
Honorable Minister, thanks for joining us and for sparing some of your time to be with us on this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Let's start with, first of all, talking about Livingstone as a town. You've been Member of Parliament for that city, it's the Zambia's tourism capital. If you had to tell somebody about Livingstone, what would you tell them?
Well, for starters, like you rightly put it, Livingstone is the tourist capital of Zambia. Well-held belief, and people love it about that. And Livingstone is the home of the mighty Victoria Falls, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, known worldwide to say this is where the smoke that thunders, the most Otunya. So that's Livingstone. For me, Livingstone is very close to my heart, simply being that I was born and bred there. The only time I left the city of Livingstone when I went to university, that was when I was 18. I've never gotten back to Livingstone until I went into pro-politics, which is 16 years later, if I could put it that way. So Livingstone offers a diversity of products, and that's why we call it the tourist capital. Not only is it looking at the Victoria Falls, the longest free fall, the curtain in the world, it also has the cultural aspect of it all. It also has the wild flora and fauna. We have the second smallest national park after the Lusaka Park in Lusaka where we are today. But the Mosotuna National Park is quite a very unique national park for us in Livingstone because it's the only park in Zambia that has a white rhino. Unfortunately, we had 14, 15, but due to road accidents and obviously our poachers that get into our parks, we are now sitting at 8, if I'm not mistaken. And then also, we're very fortunate yet again to have had 2 baby rhinos being born in the last 3 months. So we will be having a naming ceremony very soon. Cultural aspect of it all, look, Livingstone is divided between 3 chiefdoms, if I can put it that way. You've got Sokotwani in Kazungula, you've got Mukuni also in Kazungula, and then you've got Chief Nyawa and Momba up in the north. So already you can tell the diversity in terms of culture that Livingstone will have to offer, and as well as the need for us to showcase what we have. I've always mentioned to a number of people to say, look, what's good is a country if it doesn't really behold its culture. Livingstone also has the biggest, if I could put it that way, well, the oldest rather, National Museum. Livingstone Museum is one of the oldest museums in Zambia. And I think even when we were growing up, you actually get to see what museums are all about. Funny enough, those of us who were born and bred in Livingstone, you'd actually find that if you're not eating your food, your mom or dad would tell you, say, we'll take you to the museum. Why? Because we've always known museums to be for witches, witchcraft, and mysterious stuff is the right word to use. However, we're changing the myth about museums. We're changing the myth about museums to detail the very aspect that is a place where the movable heritage can be stored so that people get to know exactly where they're coming from, the history of each and every person who touched Livingstone per se. And I'm quite happy that having grown up in Livingstone, I've seen a lot of change with how we receive the museum. And also now, a lot of freedom fighters, if you can put it that way, are willing to now share information. We've been talking within the ministry to see how best we could not rewrite history, but we still have a lot of what I would like to call old guards, the fossils, who are still able to remember what they went through. So you document it and then obviously put it into the museum.
Fantastic. Honorable Minister, earlier on you talked about two baby rhinos in the national park. That's the Moso Tunya National Park. There's another big baby that has been born within the park, and that is the Radisson Blue Moso Tunya Livingstone Resort. How have you received the news of that big hotel coming to Livingstone as an addition to the bed space that we have?
Well, I think as the minister in charge of tourism, when I hear any investor coming in with an idea of increasing bed space, I get excited. Why I get excited is because I've seen how Livingstone has grown over the years. I've seen the increased appetite for people to travel to Livingstone. And most times, more often than not, and I'll make reference to the time where I was private sector head in Livingstone as chairman of the Livingstone Tourism Association. Any given opportunity where you have a holiday, you'd find that accommodation establishments are fully booked. So the mindset of a potential visitor has actually realized that on a specific weekend, don't go to Livingstone because accommodation is fully booked. Hence the reason why we're looking at opportunities and get excited when investors come to invest in an accommodation establishment. So the 97% complete resort that we're seeing in Livingstone is something that excites me on a number of fronts. Number one, obviously, is increasing on the number of bed spaces that we have in Livingstone. That's one. Two, the very fact that that particular resort is sitting in Livingstone already tells us what we want to do in terms of having to create more jobs. I double as the area member of parliament for the city of Livingstone, as well as the Minister of Tourism, and Livingstone happens to be the tourist capital. So there's a lot of concentration, a lot of focus that we're going to put into Livingstone so that at least that particular product reaches its optimum to be able to now say, look, this title of being the tourist capital actually befits the city of Livingstone. So to answer your question, we're very excited that the resort is coming up amidst the number of challenges that obviously we're facing over and above the issue of COVID, which slowed down the construction of the site, and also the location of the particular resort in itself. There's a lot of study that was put in to really understand how best we could coexist between the brick and mortar structures in the national park versus the animal corridor. So there's a lot of discussions that we've had between the developer as well as the ministry to just see how best we could create a win-win situation. What we want to see as Livingstone is to develop. Yes, there's certain sites within the country that sits in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, but ultimately the people to determine which sites to create is yourselves as the citizens, not UNESCO. So UNESCO just comes in and then says, look, you pressure test your idea. If we're going to say we want to do a runway in the park, they'll ask you a few questions. If you tick the boxes, they'll allow you to do the runway. And that's exactly what we did with the developers for the new resort. We went through a whole rigorous process, a whole rigorous stakeholder engagement to ensure that everybody else is actually happy, and then that's where we are today.
There's one issue though. The developers would love to extend that beauty to another piece of Livingstone that has been neglected for a long time. And we're talking about the Royal Livingstone Golf and Country Club, which is almost over 100 years old, 108 years old, I guess. As Minister of Tourism, how do you view the proposal to redevelop the golf course as an extension of the works that are being done with the Radisson Blue Moso Tunya Livingstone Resort?
Well, I'm happy that you're actually calling it an extension, and I think over a period of time, that's what people would want to understand. And then I'm going to ride on the extension with the sense of speaking to, if I'm staying at the resort, what else can I do? As a ministry, as a country, we've been struggling with holding on to the tourists when they come through here, especially in a place like Livingstone. The questions that always arise is, I come to Livingstone, I see the Victoria Falls, I go into the park, what else? So now, that in itself now speaks to the what else. What else is there? There's a 18-hole golf course, state-of-the-art 18-hole golf course, and that's what excites us. So all we want to look at is an opportunity that the second oldest golf club, after the one in Chipata, can be revamped. And from the discussions that I've had with the developer, they're not going to disfigure the faces, because I think we have the structure themselves are listed as a heritage site, so obviously you will not obliterate the face, but obviously the inside of the structure itself would be redone. The golf course itself would be looking in a very pristine condition, and that's the discussion that we've had. So in essence, what we're looking out for is, once this particular resort is fully operational, we will be able to now send our would-be tourists into the golf course so that they spend at least an additional day. So almost immediately, you're increasing the number of lengths of stay from a measly 2.5, 3 days we're talking about, to an easy 4, maybe 5. Because sometimes, you know, what us ardent golfers always get to do, when you play a bad round of golf today, you want to come back and revenge. And that's what we want to see. Again, I did mention to you, I was born, bred in Livingstone. I first held my club at Livingstone Golf Course. And those were many moons ago. I'm not that old, I'm not young either. But the point being is, there's a sentimental value I hold for that particular club. Both my parents, my mom and dad, were very ardent golfers. They played a lot of golf in that place. They've served on that course, that committee as lady and captain as well. So it's something that is very close to my heart. And to see a developer, an investor coming in to say, look, this is what we can possibly do for you to actually grow the sports tourism that we keep on talking about as a ministry, I think is something that is more than welcome.
What would you think we're losing for not having a first-class or world-class golf course in a tourism capital like Zambia? For example, even compared to our friends next door across the river.
Well, what I've actually picked up, obviously with my interactions within Livingstone and just country at large, Zambia is known to be a footballing nation. So the bulk of the people are more inclined to supporting soccer and the like. And then unfortunately for golf, also it has been seen as an expensive sport, only for the select few, which I think is not correct. And I think we need to demystify that myth, which suggests that golf is only for the elite. And what I'm happy about is that over a period of time, I think the last 5 years has seen the middle class income earners in the country participating in the golf activity. One thing for sure that most people don't understand, you have a chat with friends talking about how you went to play golf. The next thing they'll tell you, oh, you're chasing a small little ball. When in actual sense, the minimum number of kilometers you'll have to walk, especially if you're playing very well, minimum is 8 to 9 kilometers. But if you're a bad golfer like some of us, I can guarantee you'd walk 15 kilometers just on a golf session. So that in itself also is just something which is good enough for your lifestyle to keep fit and the like. So to go back to your question, it's very important that people see golf than just that old people chasing a small ball. What we've been grappling with in the ministry also is the very fact on how we're going to be able to sell Zambia as a destination. We have grappled for a long time where Zambia has remained an add-on is you're done with everything else, you've done your Cape Town, you've done your Seychelles, Mauritius, and then suddenly you ask your agent, what else? But what we want to see now is what Zambia to be the destination. And this particular development, especially for the tourist capital, is something that will speak to making Zambia the destination. I will tell you, it's all about the subject matter. with the development, we will want to have a sanctioned tour to happen in Livingstone. And who knows, maybe even the European tour will be able to be played at the Livingstone Golf Course.
Fantastic. Now, I'll push you against the wall, Honorable Minister. A good golf course and the golf estate also entails, especially 18 holes. That's a lot of land. And sometimes, from a political point of view, we do have pressures of land. I'm told that has been happening in the past regime. What assurance can people have that that land where the Livingstone, this iconic Livingstone Golf Club stands, will not have issues of people preferring to build houses there and plots rather than what you're talking about, leaving it as an iconic golf course refurbished and adding to the tourism offering?
Without really preempting the what I would like to call the discussions that the developer and the trustees, or is it the executive of the club, have had discussions on. But one thing for sure I know is that the entire space for the golf club will be fenced off. And here we're talking about brick and mortar. So that's security number one, assurance number one, if I can put it that way. Then number two, the trustees of the club, the ones mandated to hold the land title, the extension from the Livingstone City Council, the trustees, have assured us to say, look, for as long as we are trustees of this particular golf club, we're not going to be looking at subdividing the course, because obviously it covers a lot of land mass. And as I'm sitting as area member of parliament, I don't think it's something that I'll be able to be brought to the table for discussion. So to assure you that the golf courses will be safe, obviously the title sits in the trustees' names. The developers have assured us that they're going to face off the entire property, brick and mortar. That in itself triggers a lot of odd jobs for the Livingstone youths, who seem to be a little bit impatient with the employment of the new Dawn government. So that in itself will cushion the pressures that we're getting to have for now. And then also the very fact that now the labor contracts that you're going to see in Livingstone will purely wipe out, mop up all these youths who are looking at an opportunity to make a buck or two.
The developers of the Livingstone, the Royal Livingstone Golf and Country Club, have presented some, some pictures of what it will look like. Have you had a look at those, and what are your impressions?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to see the rendering from the developer, especially for the clubhouse. I always think the 19th hole is the ultimate hole that each and every one of us golfers would like to go to. With regards to the course itself, not much that I've seen, but I can rest assured, or rather I've been rest assured that the team that is going to redevelop the course are world class. And obviously, considering that the last state that the club was at was an 18-hole golf course, the other 9 had not yet fully developed. But as soon as the developers get into the course, we should be able to see a lot of good water features, and obviously making the course rather as tight as we possibly can, so that it remains world class.
As Minister of Tourism, can we be assured, what plans have you got to ensure that these two facilities are actually marketed to the outside world? Because ultimately, that's what will bring the numbers to these two facilities.
Very, very interesting question and observation, Caristo. I think what has been lacking in the last number of years was the cohesion between government and private sector. Government seemed to have been competing with private sector, especially in terms of marketing. I'll just harp on a bit on that one. I mean, even when you go to your road shows, what I actually got to find out in the ministry was that the government itself was determining where the private sector should go at the expense of private sector. But this time around, we want private sector to take the lead. They need to be in the driving seat. We just offer policy direction as well as policy consistency. Now, to come back to your question, how are we going to market it? That facility sits in Livingstone, held by the trustees, built by our developers. So what we're going to extend as the ministry is to speak to the bigger chain hotels. In fact, not just all the tourism and hospitality facilities in Livingstone, in Zambia, to now start marketing that particular resort. If you're going to sell a package, you've got a travel agency sitting in Osaka, you're selling a package for somebody to go and see the Victoria Falls. You'll offer them accommodation, activities, as well as a round of golf. So we're going. My plea, obviously, to the developers as well as our colleagues from NAPSA is to be able to make the contracts more receptive for other people to actually come into marketing of the particular golf course. It's a case of creating a consortium of marketing professionals. Remember, the domino effect of doing that is that it's going to get as many arrivals as we possibly can and also increase the length of stay.
What assurance will you give the people of Zambia that this facility ultimately is theirs? The Radisson Blue facility in Livingstone, the new one, has actually had a private developer. It's going to be run by Radisson Blue, of course, but owned by NAPSA. Can you tell the people of Zambia that ultimately actually it's theirs?
You know, Caristo, I think I'll start from the top. The development of the new resort in the Msotunya National Park is something that we should be happy about. And the very fact that the funds used to construct that particular building are a pension fund. For as long as you contribute to NAPSA, be rest assured that you are a shareholder in that particular facility. With the discussions that we're going to be having in Parliament about the partial withdrawal in NAPSA, the only sustainable way to continuously make money for the pension fund is to invest in other properties such as that. So there's assurance. And guess what? What we're trying to encourage Zambians, not to suggest that it's only a Zambian hotel. We want Zambians to be going there so that that money is secured. Now, there's also this myth suggesting that there's a lot of money which is going to be spent on the golf course. I've been briefed by the developer to say that money that we're talking about is actually savings from the main project. It's not additional funds that they're going to acquire from the pension fund, but it's a saving. So I'm going to be a little bit greedy here, because that money, which we're suggesting that it be taken back to the main fund, but we're saying, look, we've made a saving, so why don't we develop something for Livingstone so that it uplifts the lifestyle, it uplifts the beauty, it increases the number of jobs in the city of Livingstone. It's something that I would gladly support any day. Even if you woke me up at 3 a.m. in the morning, I'll probably raise my hand and say, look, let's do it. But the people need to understand that in as much as they crucify us sometimes, my ministry, through ZTH, suggesting that we don't market Zambia, that is one iconic piece of land, iconic golf course, that will be able to now market the country, Zambia.
Fast forward, the golf course has been refurbished, and we're looking at a fantastic structure. Imagining that day, you're gonna play golf yourself on that day?
Definitely.
Official opening?
Absolutely. I keep telling people, golf accommodation establishment outside His Excellency the President, I think I will fight with my colleague, Honorable Brenda Tambatamba, with regards to who's going to take the lead, including my colleague Elvis Nkandu, who's Minister in charge of sport, on how we're going to launch these two facilities once they're ready. But I can safely tell you that of the three that I've mentioned, I'll be the only one who will be able to sleep in the room as well as play golf. So it's a double whammy for me.
Honorable Minister, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Perhaps we can go over there and see you do a round of golf, or at least show us your skills. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Well, thank you very much, Caristo, for inviting me for this interview. And we're looking forward to have a post-interview when these facilities are duly operational.